పున్నాము ఎన్నెల కోలు పూసి కాసిందే కోలు
నీరు నిమ్మల కింద గన్నెర్ల కింద వంగి పూలే రంగ కొంగందుతూనే వంగి పూలే రంగ
Good evening, friends. This is the third day of Hyderabad Literary Festival 2021. Our session is on storytelling, and I'm extremely happy that we have some very experienced storytellers on this session. And I am very excited to introduce to you at this moment Lakshmi Iyer, who is right here.
Hello.
Lakshmi Iyer is a banking professional in her day job. She slaves over her writing at night when her children are in bed. An MBA graduate from Lebeau College of Business and alumna of the Yale Writers Workshop, she writes creative nonfiction and hopes to publish a memoir of her adoption journey someday. She lives with her husband and her 3 daughters, 2 adopted and 1 biological, near Philadelphia in the US. Why Is My Hair Curly? Came out in 2020 with illustrations by Nilofer Wadia as her latest book for children. Lakshmi, I invite you to share with us your story, and over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Hi to everybody who's watching. Good evening. It's pretty early in the morning for me here. The format for this session will go something like this. I'm just going to read a couple of pages. I won't take much time from my book, like right from the beginning of my book. And then I'm going to kind of explore upon the topics that the book touches upon and why, and some things that I feel were important to me as I wrote this book. So without much ado, here's the book. It's called Why Is My Hair Curly? The illustrations are by Nilofer Wadia, and a huge shout out to her. The illustrations, I'm going to just show you a peek at one of them. They're very reminiscent of R.K. Narayan and Malgudi days, like black and white sketches, kind of hark back to a generation. So I was very, very happy with the way it all came out. She had captured the nuance of the characters really well. So the first chapter starts like this. All vacations come to an end. We both get window seats, said Avnish, his face lit up with joy as he surveyed the seats of the Shatabdi coach they were in. While he stood figuring out which one he wanted, Avantika put her backpack down on a seat that had its back to the direction they were to travel in. She loved the feeling of being pulled backward, of having no idea where she was going. Also, she hated that the wind got in her face and messed up her already unruly hair. Amma had tied a scarf around it for good measure. Avantika also loved looking at the passenger charts that they stuck on the coach before people boarded. She would look at the names of people who would sit near them and always wished there would be other children she could make friends with. This time, too, they were out of luck. The others on the list seemed like an older couple who had requested aisle seats. Amma and Appa were busy putting away their suitcases and the humongous boxes that Pati and Tata, her grandparents, had packed for all of them. They were filled with vadam, or sun-dried fayams, palaparam, also called jackfruit, mavadu, the baby mango pickle special to Coimbatore, and loads of bhakshanam, a mix of sweet and savory snacks to share with friends once they reached home. It was not that they could not get what they wanted in Chennai, but Pati always liked to make a fuss of her son and her family when they visited. I want to stop here. This is just to give you a brief peek into the kind of story and some of the things that I want to touch upon when I speak about the book. The book is about Avantika and Avnish. They're a brother and sister, adopted sometime after birth from an orphanage by their parents, Radha and Francis. And the story is about Avantika having this really unruly curly hair, which she has no idea how to manage. She's about 10, 11. Her mom has shiny, sleek hair. She has no idea how to deal with her daughter's hair. And this is a seemingly, mundane, common thing. I'm a mother of 3 daughters. I adopted white children who have silky, sleek, blonde hair. I have this curly, frizzy hair, and my youngest daughter has similar hair. Hair issues are very common in adoption. It's something that people don't talk about, but it's also inherently something that defines the mother-daughter relationship. When as a mother you're unsure of how to care for your children's hair, it makes you feel insecure. And this is a conversation that comes up a lot in the adoption circles. So that kind of was the seed of the idea that became this book. One of the things I when I read children's literature is that, okay, I have to hark back to an earlier time. See, I grew up in 70s and 80s, Coimbatore. Access to libraries and books is not as common as it is today. I was fed a steady diet of Enid Blyton books, where my idea of books and characters in books were defined by Enid Blyton and authors in the genre that I read. So most of these characters had like blonde hair, they had freckles, they ate exotic things. And as a child of the 80s and 70s and 80s at 10 and 11, thinking about treacle and marmalade and scones, this was something that defined my childhood years. But the other insidious thing, like food is something, yes, once I grew up and I was able to travel, these were things I was able to taste and, I could go back and relate. But there were other insidious things like where it would always be the boy children who went off on adventures. And if there was a girl who loved adventures, she would be a tomboy, an approximation of a boy. And the kind of message that it sent to the younger me was that if you had to be adventurous or wanted to explore or travel, you had to be a boy or somebody like a boy. And then all the parents and characters, the adults in the books that I read, the men always went off to work or they were out doing their thing. The mother was always plumping pillows and packing tuck boxes. And, she was always the nurturer. The father was always the provider. It is a stereotype and it is based in reality. That was the reality of the times that I lived in. But reality keeps changing and evolving. Now, of my generation, when I see all my peers, there are very few households where it's a one-income household. Mothers work, fathers work. Mothers nurture, fathers nurture too. Again, as an adoptive parent, when my children came to me at the age of 10 months, my husband and I were equal caregivers in the whole parenting equation. He changed as many diapers as I did. He fed the children bottled milk in, pureed fruits as much as I did. So, but I rarely see this being translated into the children's literature that I have been picking up. And again, it could be remiss of me. Maybe I'm not finding the right kind of books for my children. So sometime in 2019, when Westland and Vidhi Bhargava approached me with the idea of writing a book, these were the things that were in my head. Talk about adoption never, ever brought the birth family into the picture. It was always like the backstory of adoption was rooted in poverty. It was rooted in trauma. Adoption, if it pertained to the story, was central and was almost always a story of pain. And experiences, like everything else, are unique. There is no one size fits all. I wanted a story of joy. I wanted adoption to be part of the storyline, but not the only part of the storyline. So the book was born out of those needs. And in the process, you have a mother in this book who's frazzled, just like me. She is forever worrying about her children. She loses her temper. She apologizes. And the children in the story, they are very aware of their adoption. They are very aware that they have a family that gave them up so another family could raise them. And some of these questions at the age of 10 and 11 are very crucial to identity formation. So who am I? Whom do I look like? Where do I come from? In this case, it's the hair is just an idea. It could be anything. And then the hair sets Avantika apart from her peers. So it's not only an adoption story, but it's also a story of when a child feels different from their peers. How do they go about it? The other thing that I consciously included in the book is the idea of journaling, of putting down your thoughts on paper. So when you have big feelings, how do you process them? Maybe if you write them, they make more sense to you. Maybe if you can write them down, you can let go of those feelings. So there's like things that you can talk about when you take the book. The other thing, again, is that's a sticking point with me is diversity in literature. There is a lot of talk, especially here in the US, about being inclusive, about curriculum being, including person of color, which is a fancy way of saying anybody who's not white. But the reality is, when I go and search my children's school library for books to check out for them, I rarely find books by South Asians or Indians in particular. And even the books I do find either are written by second generation Indian American authors whose experience of India is vastly different from that of somebody who grew up there. There's a subtle whitewashing, a subtle stereotyping that I find hard to accept. And sometimes I feel like there is chaos. Yes, India is always portrayed as this vibrant, chaotic, exotic place. But where are the stories? Where are the stories that touch upon the universality of themes? Children go to school in India just like they do in the US or Europe. The idea of being bullied is a universal theme. The fact that you have parents struggling with their children's hair in the morning is a universal theme. So where is the joy? Where is the universality? So those are some of the things that I wanted to touch upon, and I hope I did it in the book. Only the readers can tell me that. But at this point, I'd like to ask, like, if any of you are watching, if you have questions about how the book came to be, any of the themes in the book, I'd love to take them. Or if there's anything you'd like to specifically address, I'd love to do that.
Would you like to read some of them, some of the passages, Lakshmi? That would be very nice.
Absolutely, I can do that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about at the beginning of this, like I'm going to kind of do like a compare and contrast. At the beginning of the book, Avantika first goes to school on her first day at school. Her teacher pulls her up in front of the class because everybody is talking about, what they did over the summer. And Avantika in the morning rush, she washes her hair. She forgets to dry it and, tie it. So she literally goes to hair with wet hair, and her back is wet, and the kids around her are, whispering about her. So for somebody who's pretty articulate, she goes up to the front of the class, and then it's like she doesn't know what to say. I'm just trying to pull up that piece. I apologize, I can't find the piece. But the other thing is the opposite of it is like towards the end of the book when the teacher pulls her up to talk about, they're talking about extempore speeches, and she's pulled up, and then she kind of walks up to the front of the class, and then, talks about how she feels. So she says, "Good morning, all." She began with confidence. "My hair and I have a complicated relationship. Sometimes I feel it is beautiful. Other days I wish it would disappear magically and I would have hair like my amma, straight and smooth. Sometimes I want to cut it short because it makes amma happy. Other days I want it long like Rapunzel. Believe me, it's not easy. It's not easy not knowing why my hair is curly. Some of you may already know my brother and I are adopted. Being adopted means you're always aware of being different. That my hair is different from the rest of my family made me focus on it so much more. I kept thinking if only my hair was different, say like Shruti's, then all my problem would go away. I would fit right in. No one would tease me about it, and I wouldn't have people trying to put pencils through my hair or call me Sai Baba or Medusa. Today, though, I think I have finally made peace with my hair. It is who I am. Whether curly, unruly, messy, or gorgeous, as some people seem to think, this is who I am. This is what I have. Today, I am accepting of who I am the way I am. Avantika beamed, knowing for once that she had not stuttered. She had actually said what she wanted to say. And even if only she thought so herself, she had done well. So this was like a contrast to her earlier speech. And then there's another bit that I particularly enjoy while writing, which was like when she had to write in her diary about, again, hair is a common theme, as you'll see. So she says, "Dear diary, Amma wants me to cut my hair again. This time, I don't feel like cutting it. I know it's hard for Amma to take care of it, and I'm not old enough to braid it myself. I feel like someone out there has hair like mine, maybe my birth mother. I can't talk about it to Amma because I think she would feel sad. Vibha from the train said, it looks beautiful. Maybe I can learn how to care for it. Perhaps there are DIY videos I can look up. I can't wait to go to school today and meet Maithili, Shruti, and Sarah. I hope they come at the same time we go there. 5 more days before school reopens. Love, A." And there's another bit again, like, so when Avantika and Anish come back from their summer vacation, Avantika processes her feelings by writing in her journal. Her brother Anish, who's a little younger than her, kind of holds it in. And there's this one place where they both talk. And I wanted to draw the contrast with how, some kids are comfortable expressing how they feel, while others aren't. Let me see if I can pull that part. Okay. Avantika went back to her room to find Amnish playing with his Rubik's Cube. He almost had one side done. Puzzles didn't fascinate her the way they did Avnish. He was unusually silent. She sat next to him and held out her hand for the cube. Avnish did not hand it over. Instead, he said, "I heard what Vishnu and Visru told you. It was not nice. Are you going to tell Amma about it?" Avantika was not sure which conversation Avnish was talking about. He was so quiet that most times it was easy to forget he was around. "Which conversation, Avni?" Avantika prodded. "The one where they said mean things about us being adopted. They think I'm too little to understand, but I do. I did not speak to them after that, but I don't think they even noticed." Avantika hugged her little brother. He was growing taller. "It's okay, Avni. They are mean. What's the point of telling Amma and Appa? They will only feel bad. Chitti won't accept that her sons did anything wrong. Chittappa will feel sad. Other than that, nothing will change. Anyway, we won't see them again for another year at least." Handing over the Rubik's Cube, Avnish walked to the window and sat staring outside. Not knowing how to cheer him up, Avantika handed out a chocolate bar she had saved from the stash Chittappa had given them as they were leaving Coimbatore. Miraculously, it still had not melted in the Chennai heat. It seemed to cheer him up, but now she felt terrible. So again, the passages that I picked to read are indicative of the things that we don't address head on when it comes to adoption or when it comes to talking about feelings in children's literature.
That's lovely, Lakshmi.
Yeah, Amita, is there anything else that you'd like to touch upon? Because I feel like I'm talking to myself, so
I know. It's very difficult to do so in a screen. I mean, I can put my video on as well, so that you don't feel that way. But there is in the chat box a couple of comments and questions. So one of them is saying that hair seems to be emerging like a character in the story itself. So would you like to say a line or two on that?
Sure. Absolutely. The hair is really a stand-in for anything or basically everything Avantika struggles with herself. In this case, the hair is literally a metaphor. She is very conscious of her hair, but it's also a reflection on how conscious she feels about the fact that she's adopted. It doesn't come up because in most cases, I'm not sure how, I think this is universal too. Children who are adopted are expected to feel grateful for the life that's been given to them. As an adoptive parent, the thing that I've come to understand is that when you adopt a child, gratitude is definitely not something you want to expect from the child. The other thing is, as an adoptive parent, I'm only giving my children a different life, not necessarily a better life. And that's an important distinction to make. So when society and the media and the messages that come from outside make children internalize the fact that they're expected to be indebted or grateful in some way, bringing up feelings about the birth family, about identity, makes children feel like they shouldn't be talking about it because they're going to hurt the people who are raising them. And when it's hard to talk about things, those things sit and stew and simmer inside the children. And how do they, bring it out? So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about in the book, is that it's okay to talk about it. Gratitude is not expected. And as parents, if we are open about it right from the very get-go, whether or not there is contact with the birth family, if there is a healthy respect and dignity shown to the birth parents, then the children feel, like the home is a safe space. They can talk about the things that are bothering them without having to wonder if they're, they shouldn't be the persons who have to handle their parents' fragility. They're not the adults in the equation. So that kind of thing. So in this case, yes, the hair in itself is a metaphor. It can be anything. It can be a cleft lip. It can be something physical. It can be something emotional. It can be something, it can be an invisible disability. In any case, it should be something that definitely needs to be talked about, and there should be no stigma associated with it.
I mean, hair is a very good way, because you were right. You mentioned this. One does tend to fuss about one's hair. It's one of the features that stand out, and you braid it or you don't, or it's disheveled or whatever. I mean, that's something that does stand out. So it's a good point to. I mean, it's a very sensitive subject to talk about adoption, and I think it's great that you do this in your book, through your book, and to children as your audience, because this is a children's book. In that sense, it's very nice to bring up this subject, which is otherwise taboo. How has the book been received by readers in the US or in India or elsewhere?
Mostly it's been positive. I see like the Amazon ratings are pretty nice. But then I think the biggest feedback for me was from people that I know. Like I have friends who have adopted children from India, and they don't have an open adoption. And I have a child whom I mentioned in the acknowledgements. She was like literally the person that I would go to when I had various drafts of the book. I had her read it. I wanted to see if she felt represented. And at the end of the day, when the book came out, she was one of the first people who said, "Auntie, I feel seen." It's important to me that a child sees themselves in book, and it can happen in many ways. In this case, adoption is one of the themes. It's not the only theme. So I want children, like I have friends here. I can only talk about the US because this is where I live, and I don't have direct interaction with children other than, the children in my family in India. But every Indian child here in my neighborhood who came home to get their books signed, one thing they kept telling me was that I was so happy to see, Avantika and Avnish eating idli chutney in the morning, or that their mom made rava kesari, or the fact that puri and aloo curry was a thing, food is such an important part of who we are growing up, and to see themselves represented, especially in a country where children prefer to take pasta over say pulao because it helps them fit in at school. To see that in books and to see those books available in the school library makes a big difference. So that's the local feedback I have. But then, on the contrary, getting these books into libraries and into the hands of people who make decisions about stocking those books is where I personally felt a lot of resistance.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, that's very interesting. But your stories take place in India. Your characters
Yeah. This one was intentional because I live in the US and it's so easy to write something that is, set here and catering to an audience that, is pretty white. At least the place where I live in is 90% white. But just to set the story in India and intentionally keep it kind of neutral. As in, I mentioned Chennai and Coimbatore as places, but it could literally be any places. The choice of names, Avantika and Avnish, there's nothing regional about those names. But I did use the terms Amma, Appa, Chitta, Pachiti, and the protagonists are Tamil speaking. And there's a lot of vernacular. The mom calls the children Chellam and Pattu, and the kind of endearments that I use for my children. And all of that was intentional because I feel like in the quest for accessibility and making things available to everybody, we lose the richness of the niche. And sometimes it's okay to set stories that capture the cultural richness of a niche, but make it universal. So, it's a portal, for me in the 80s, Enid Blyton was a portal into Europe and UK of those times. I want these books that I write to be portals into an India of a certain time. So, and that's why it was intentional.
Wonderful, Lakshmi. Thank you. I think we haven't had enough of this dialogue, but there is another storyteller waiting. Maybe we'll come back at the end and talk a little bit more about it. Thank you, Lakshmi. I move on now to, thank you. I now move on to the next storyteller, Rohini Chintha. She teaches genetics and biotechnology at University College for Women in Koti in Hyderabad. She's also a science communicator, children's writer, and a professional storyteller. She uses storytelling to communicate science to non-science groups for all ages, especially children. She has been awarded a Certificate of Excellence in the Field of Innovation in 2019 by K.V. Rao Scientific Society in Hyderabad and Electronic Arts USA for using storytelling as a means of teaching science. I invite Rohini to please talk about or tell us the story, science story. We have a recording, Rohini. We will play this and we'll come back to you. So please stay online. And may I request the tech team to please play her English story.
It's a Telugu story today. This is the first time.
I'm so sorry. English was yesterday. You're very right. Today is the Telugu story. That's correct. Dear friends who are watching here, we have a hybrid situation here. We will have some live, some recorded for various reasons. And yes, this particular story will be in Telugu. Thank you, Rohini.
Hi. నా పేరు రోహిణి. మీ అందరికీ నూతన సంవత్సర శుభాకాంక్షలు. నూతన సంవత్సరం సందర్భంగా నేను మీ అందరికీ ఒక మంచి సైన్స్ కథ చెప్తాను. సైన్స్ అంటే మనం పగలు రాత్రి అనక బోర్డు శ్రమపడి పెద్ద పెద్ద విశ్వవిద్యాలయాల్లో, యూనివర్సిటీస్లో, ల్యాబ్స్లో రాత్రనక పగలనక ఎన్నో ప్రయోగాలు చేసి కనిపెట్టే ప్రక్రియ అనుకుంటాం. కానీ ఈ కథలో మనకు ఒక విషయం తెలుస్తుంది. మన చుట్టూ ఉన్న విషయాల్ని గమనించి వాటిని అర్థం చేసుకోవడం కూడా ఒక మంచి సైన్స్ ప్రక్రియ అని. ఇప్పుడు నేను మీకు ఈ కథ చెప్తాను. అనగనగా చాలా సంవత్సరాల క్రితం గ్రీక్ దేశంలో అరిస్టాటిల్ అనొక మహామేధావి, చాలా తెలివైన ఆయన ఉండేవారు. ఆయనకి ఎప్పుడు కొత్త విషయాలు తెలుసుకోవాలి అనే కోరిక చాలా బలంగా ఉండేది. ఆయన మనం నుంచున్న భూమి ఏ ఆకారంలో ఉంది, భూమి నుంచి సూర్యుడు ఎంత దూరంలో ఉన్నాడు, భూమి సూర్యుడు చుట్టూ తిరుగుతుందా, సూర్యుడు భూమి చుట్టూ తిరుగుతాడా, ఇలా ఎన్నో విషయాలు ఎప్పుడూ ఆలోచిస్తూనే ఉండేవారు. అయితే ఆయన ఆలోచించి ఊరుకోలేదు. ఆయన స్నేహితులందరితోటి ఈ విషయాలు చర్చించేవారు. భారతదేశం నుంచి వచ్చిన ఆయన స్నేహితుల్ని భూమి ఎలా ఉంటుంది అని అడిగితే ఆయన భారతదేశం నుంచి వచ్చిన స్నేహితులు భూమి ఒక బల్లలా ఉంటుంది, ఆ బల్ల 4 ఏనుగులు వాటి నెత్తి మీద పెట్టుకుని మోస్తుంటాయి, ఆ 4 ఏనుగుల్ని ఒక తాబేలు మోస్తుంది, వాటి బరువుని భరిస్తుంది, ఆ తాబేలు సముద్రంలో నుంచుని ఉంటుంది, భూమి అలా ఉంటుంది అని చెప్పేవారు. అరిస్టాటిల్ ఇది ఆటే నమ్మశక్యంగా లేదే, భూమి ఏమిటి, సముద్రం ఏమిటి, సముద్రంలో తాబేలేమిటి, ఆ తాబేలు మీద 4 దిక్కులా చూసే 4 ఏనుగులు ఏమిటి, వాటి తలపైన బల్లేమిటి, ఆ బల్లపైన కొండలు, జలాశయాలు, అడవులు, ఇల్లులు, మనమా, అలా ఉంటుందా భూమి? సరేలే, వీళ్ళ దృష్టిలో అలా ఉంటుందేమో, ఎవరం కనిపెట్టలేదు కదా ఎలా ఉంటుందో, మనకేం తెలుస్తుంది అని ఊరుకునేవారు. అయితే అంతటితో ఊరుకోలేదు. ఆయన వేరే స్నేహితులను కూడా భూమి ఎలా ఉంటుంది అని అడిగేవారు. కొంచెం మంది భూమి బోర్లించిన గిన్నెలా ఉంటుంది, ఆ బోర్లించిన గిన్నె మీద చెట్లు, అడవులు, జలాశయాలు, ఇళ్ళు, మనం అని చెప్పేవారు. చీనా దేశం నుంచి వచ్చిన ఆయన స్నేహితులేమో భూమి బల్లలా ఉంటుంది, ఆ బల్లపైన తెరచాప కట్టినట్టు ఆకాశం ఉంటుంది, ఆ బల్ల మీద ఇళ్ళు, జలాశయాలు, కొండలు, మనము అందరం ఉంటాం, ఆ తెరచాప పైన సూర్యుడు, చంద్రుడు, నక్షత్రాలు అవన్నీ ఉంటాయి అని చెప్పేవారు. కానీ అరిస్టాటిల్కి ఇదేమీ నమ్మశక్యంగా అనిపించేది కాదు. అబ్బా, ఎవరిని అడిగినా ఎవరెవరో ఏమిటేమిటో చెప్తున్నారు, ఒకళ్ళు భూమి బల్లలా ఉందంటారు, ఒకళ్ళేమో ఏనుగుల తల మీద మోస్తోందంటారు, ఏమిటి ఎలాగ మనం నిరూపించడం ఈ భూమి గురించి అని ఎంతో తర్జన పడేవారు. కానీ ఆయనకి ఎంత ఆలోచించినా ఏమీ తట్టేది కాదు. అయితే ఒకసారి ఆయన అనుకున్నారు, కనపడిన భూమి ఆకారం ఎలా ఉందో కనిపెట్టడం కంటే ముందు మనం కనిపించే ఈ చంద్రగ్రహణాన్ని అర్థం చేసుకుందాం అనుకునేవారు. అనుకున్న వెంటనే సంవత్సరానికి 2 సార్లు వచ్చే చంద్రగ్రహణాన్ని ఆయన డాబా ఎక్కి చూస్తూ ఉండేవారు. ఆయనకి అప్పట్లో బైనాక్యులర్స్, టెలిస్కోప్ ఇలాంటి పరికరాలు ఏమీ లేవు, దుర్బిణులు ఏమీ లేవు. ఆయన కళ్ళను వాడి ఆకాశంలో చందమామ అలా నల్లగా అయిపోవడం, కాసేపు మాయమైపోవడం, మళ్ళీ తిరిగి ప్రత్యక్షం అవడం, ఇవన్నీ ప్రతి చంద్రగ్రహణానికి చూస్తుండేవారు. సంవత్సరానికి వచ్చే 2 చంద్రగ్రహణాలు ఆయన గమనించేవారు. గమనించి ఎందుకు ఈ చందమామ ఇలా మాయమైపోతుంది, మళ్ళీ వస్తుంది, ఏమిటి జరుగుతోంది అని అనుకునేవారు. అనుకుని మళ్ళీ ఆయన స్నేహితులను అడిగేవారు, మీకు చంద్రగ్రహణం గురించి ఏమైనా తెలుసా అని. అయితే భారతదేశం నుంచి వచ్చే ఆయన స్నేహితులు, అయ్యో నీకు చంద్రగ్రహణం గురించి తెలీదా, చంద్రగ్రహణంలో రాహు అనే పెద్ద బ్రహ్మరాక్షసుడు చందమామని మింగేస్తాడు, కానీ ఆ చందమామను మింగేశాక అతనికి తల, మెడ మాత్రమే ఉన్నాయి, విష్ణుమూర్తి అతని శరీరాన్ని ఖండించేశాడు, నరికేశాడు, అందుకని మింగేసిన చందమామ మెడలోంచి జారి బయటకు వచ్చేస్తుంది, అదే చంద్రగ్రహణం అని చెప్పేవారు. అయితే చీనా నుంచి వచ్చిన ఆయన స్నేహితులు, అయ్యో నీకు చంద్రగ్రహణం గురించి కూడా తెలీదా, చంద్రగ్రహణంలో పెద్ద డ్రాగన్ వచ్చి చందమామ వెలుగు బాగుంటుందని చందమామని ఎత్తుకుపోవడానికి ప్రయత్నిస్తుంది, కానీ మేమందరం ఆ డ్రాగన్ని భయపెట్టడానికి గట్టిగా డప్పులు వాయిస్తాం, డప్పులు వాయిస్తే ఆ డ్రాగన్ భయపడి పారిపోతుంది, అది చందమామను పట్టుకున్న కాసేపు చంద్రగ్రహణం, తర్వాత అది పారిపోతుంది అనేవారు. అరిస్టాటిల్కి ఈ కథలు కూడా నచ్చేవి కాదు. చంద్రగ్రహణం ఏంటి, చందమామని రాక్షసులు మింగేయడం ఏమిటి, డ్రాగన్లు ఎత్తుకుపోవడం ఏమిటో ఇదంతా ఎంత ఆలోచించినా అర్థం కావట్లేదే అని అనుకుని, కానీ ఆయన ప్రయత్నం వదలలేదు. ప్రతి చంద్రగ్రహణానికి డాబా ఎక్కి తీక్షణంగా చూసేవారు. చూడగా ఆయనకు ఒక విషయం అర్థమైంది. చంద్రగ్రహణం వచ్చినప్పుడల్లా సూర్యుడు భూమికి వెనక భాగాన్ని ఉండేవాడు, చందమామ భూమికి ముందు భాగాన ఉండేది. అయితే చంద్రగ్రహణం సూర్యుడు భూమికి వెనకాల, చందమామ భూమికి ముందు ఉన్నప్పుడు వస్తుందన్నమాట. అంటే భూమి సూర్యుడికి చందమామకి మధ్యలో ఉన్నప్పుడు చంద్రగ్రహణం వస్తుంది అని ఆయన అనుకున్నారు. అనుకుని ఈ చంద్రగ్రహణాన్ని అలా గమనిస్తూ ఉండేవారు. గమనిస్తూ ఉన్నప్పుడల్లా ఆయన మళ్ళీ అనుకున్నారు, సూర్యుడు వెనకుండి భూమి మీద అతని కాంతిని పడితే ఆ కాంతి నీడాయి చందమామ మీద పడడం వల్ల చందమామ కాసేపు మాయమైపోతుంది. ఇదన్నమాట చంద్రగ్రహణం అనుకున్నారు. అనుకుని ఎప్పుడు భూమి నీడ చందమామ మీద గుండ్రంగానే ఎందుకుంటుంది? భూమి బల్లలా ఉందని కొంచెం మంది అంటున్నారు, బోర్లించిన గిన్నెలా ఉందని కొంచెం మంది అంటున్నారు, ఏనుగుల తలపై ఉందని కొంచెం మంది అంటున్నారు. ఎలా ఉంటుంది భూమి? ఈ భూమి ఏ ఆకారంగా ఉంటే ఎప్పుడు చందమామ మీద గుండ్రని నీడ పడేలా ఉంటుంది? ఇదేదో మనం పరీక్షించాల్సిన విషయమే అని అనుకున్నారు. అనుకుని ఈ పరీక్ష చేయడానికి 3 వస్తువులు తీసుకున్నారు. ఒకటేమో గుండ్రంగా ఉండే ఒక మూత, తీసుకున్నారు. ఇంకొకటేమో నారింజ పండు తీసుకున్నారు. తర్వాత ఇంకొకటేమో సగం చేసిన నారింజ పండు తీసుకున్నారు. ఈ మూడిట్లతోటి భూమి ఆకారం ఎలా ఉందో కనిపెట్టడానికి ఆయన ఒక చిన్న పరీక్ష చేశారు. ఈ పరీక్షలో ఏం చేశారంటే, ఆయన ముందుగా మూత తీసుకున్నారు. మూత తీసుకుని ఆ మూతని సూర్యరశ్మికి అడ్డుగా పెట్టారు, నీడ పడేలాగా. ఆ మూత ఒక ఆకారంలో పట్టుకున్నప్పుడు గుండ్రటి నీడ పడింది. సూర్యుడికి ఆ మూత అడ్డుగా పట్టుకున్నప్పుడు గుండ్రటి నీడ పడింది. ఓహో, ఇది అయ్యుండొచ్చు అని అనుకుని ఆ మూతని తిప్పారు. కానీ తిప్పాక గుండ్రని నీడ ఏమాత్రం పడలేదు, బల్లలా నీడ పడింది. కానీ చందమామ మీద ఆయన చూసిన నీడ ఎప్పుడు గుండ్రంగానే ఉంది. ఈ బల్లలా నీడ పడితే భూమి ఇలా బల్లలా ఉండుండదు. ఒకవైపు గుండ్రని నీడే, కానీ రెండో వైపు బల్లలా పడుతుంది నీడ. ఈ బల్ల నీడ అయి ఉండదు, ఈ షేప్ కాదు, భూమి ఈ ఆకారం కాదు అని పక్కన పెట్టేశారు. తర్వాత రెండోసారి ఏం చేశారు, ఆయన ఒక నారింజ పండు తీసుకున్నారు. నారింజ పండు తీసుకుని దాన్ని 2 చెక్కలుగా చేశారు. ఒక చెక్కని మళ్ళీ ఎండలో పెట్టారు. ఒకవైపు పట్టుకుంటే గుండ్రటి నీడ. ఓహో, బోర్లించిన గిన్నెలా ఉండుండొచ్చు, తిరగతిప్పిన నారింజ పండు చెక్కలా కూడా ఉండుండొచ్చు అనుకున్నారు. కానీ అది వేరే విధంగా పట్టుకుంటే దాని నీడ సెమీ సర్కిల్గా ఉంది, దాని నీడ షేప్ మారిపోయింది. ఇలా ఎప్పుడు పడలేదు చందమామ మీద నేను చూసిన నీడ, ఇది అయి ఉండదు అని ఆయన అది కూడా కాదని పక్కన పెట్టేశారు. తర్వాత ఆయన మొత్తం నారింజ పండు, గుండ్రటి నారింజ పండు తీసుకున్నారు. తీసుకుని దాన్ని ఎన్ని విధాలా పట్టుకున్నా, ఎన్ని విధాలా తిప్పినా గుండ్రటి నీడే పడింది. ఓహో, ఇది ఎన్ని విధాలా తిప్పినా గుండ్రటి నీడే పడుతుంది కాబట్టి చందమామ మీద నీడ కూడా ఎప్పుడు గుండ్రంగానే ఉంటుంది, కాబట్టి భూమి కూడా గుండ్రంగా ఉంటుందన్నమాట అని ఆయన కనిపెట్టి అందరికీ భూమి గుండ్రంగా ఉంటుందని ఆయన చెప్పారు. చిన్న ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ చేశారు. సూర్యకాంతిలో నీడ పడేలాగా ఒక మూతని, ఒక నారింజ పండుని, ఒక నారింజ చెక్కని పట్టుకుని ఆయన భూమి గుండ్రంగా ఉంటుందని చెప్పేశారు. అప్పట్లో ఆయనకి దూరబీని లేదు, రాకెట్స్ లేవు, శాటిలైట్ పిక్చర్స్ లేవు, ఏమీ లేవు. కేవలం ఆయన కళ్ళు, బుద్ధి బలం వాడి సైన్స్లో గొప్ప ప్రక్రియను కనిపెట్టారు, గొప్ప డిస్కవరీ చేశారు ఆయన. దీన్ని బట్టి మనకు తెలిసింది ఏంటంటే, సైన్స్ చేయాలంటే మన చుట్టూ ఉన్న విషయాల్ని గమనించడం, మన బుద్ధి బలాన్ని వాడడం అనేది చాలా ముఖ్యం. మీ అందరూ ఈ కథ ఎంజాయ్ చేశారని అనుకుంటున్నాను. మీరందరూ ఆనందంగా ఉండాలని కోరుకుంటున్నాను. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Thank you for this, Rohini. We will move on to the next storyteller and come back to you. There are wonderful comments that science through stories is really mind-blowing and a wonderful experience. So we will come back to you. I now invite, thank you, Ambujavalli, the next storyteller. She is an IT professional turned storyteller. Mentored by legends in the world of storytelling, is known for her unique style of blending rhythms and gestures into her stories. Among the workshops facilitated by her, Mudras and Rhythms, conducted as part of the Feast International Conference in 2019, deserves a special mention. Featured and intertwined by national television channels, national and community radios, she has also shared her expertise at international fests, the Chennai Storytelling Festival, and under the Alamaram. The audience loves her energy, expressions, rhythms, interactions, humor, and more importantly, the spontaneity. Ambujavalli, we look forward to all of this in your recording. Technical team, please play Ambujavalli. Thank you.
Tananne nane nanna nanna, ye ante alva, B ante bonda, P ante pizza, I ante ice cream. Chala ruchiga undi kada. R ante resting, D ante dreaming, what a life, aha aha. A for alva, B for bonda, P for pizza, I for ice cream, R for resting, D for dreaming, what a life, aha aha. What a life, aha aha. That was the favorite song of Anandavalli alias Anandi, the princess of Anantapur. Anandi liked only two things: eating, sleeping. That's it. There were so many things that she hated to do. Walking, running, jogging, swimming, dancing, squatting, skipping, jumping, climbing, bending, lifting, cycling, When she was a very small child, at the maths class, the teacher would teach. Children repeat, 1, 1 is 1. And all the children would repeat, 1, 1 is 1. You know what Anandi would say? 1, 1 is bun. Maths class over. At the music class, Anandi, listen properly, okay, and repeat. Lambodara lagumigara. Okay, sir. Lambodara laddu mixture iyavva. Anandi, focus, okay? Lambodara lagumigara. Okay, sir. Anandi, focus. Lambodara laddu mixture iyavva. Anandi, Lambodara lagumigara. Lambodara laddu mixture iyavva. Anandi, Lambodara lagu mika ra. Lambodara laddu mixture iyavva. Music class over. All children love PT periods, right? But not Anandi. When the children would run to the ground and form a long queue during their PT periods, Anandi would always be at the end of the queue, pushing her friends forward. Hey, no mandrapo, hey, no mandrapo, no mandrapo, hey, no mandrapo. And at last, when her turn came, you know what she would say? Sir, I have a tummy ache. No. I have a toothache. No. My whole body, my hands are hurting, my legs are hurting, my Do you want to check with my father? I am not feeling good. You want to check with my father? Who is the king, sir? No, Anandi, you can go to your class, the teacher would say. And Anandi would go back to her class and continue with her karkamorka. Years passed by and Anandi entered into her teens. When the children of her age would go for swimming, dancing and so many things, Anandi found it difficult even to climb up the stairs. And the queen was worried. Anandi, strict diet resign from tomorrow, okay? Morning, 1 dosa. Lunch, 1 cup of rice. And dinner, 1 fruit, okay? Okay, Amma. That night, Anandi couldn't sleep peacefully. Images of bhajis and jalebis, alwa, bonda, pizza, ice cream haunting her dreams. Early morning, she got an idea. She tiptoed to the kitchen, spoke to the head cook, came back. Next morning, breakfast table was laid, dosa was on the way. La 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 la. Everyone could see one end of the dosa, but to see the other end of the dosa, they had to turn their heads. Of course, Anandi had only one dosa. For lunch, she had 1 cup of rice, and for dinner, 1 whole jackfruit. The queen decided to change her strategy. Anandi, eat whatever you want, but on one condition. Every day, 2 hours compulsory workout, okay? Working out, Amma, I love that, Amma. Exercising, oh, I love exercising. Definitely, Amma, definitely. Next morning, Anandi was dressed in her gym suit. Timer in one hand, water bottle in other hand. She was all ready. She entered the gymming room and told her mother, Amma, you can understand, right? I feel so conscious if someone watches me, Amma. Can you please make sure that nobody enters this room, Amma, please? Fair enough, thought the queen. Of course, Anandi, I'll take care of that. At the end of 2 hours, Anandi came out, fully drenched in sweat. The queen was relieved. At last, she's changing. A month passed by, but there was no change. Anandi still couldn't climb the stairs. The queen was confused. Why? That day, after Anandi started working out, 1 hour 55 minutes, the queen went there, opened the window, slightly peeped in. Anandi was lying there, relaxing in Shavasana. Oh, my dear baby. The queen looked at her admiringly. The timer went off. Anandi woke up, switched off the timer, wiped her face on the joldu from her face, took the water bottle, poured the water on herself, came out, fully drenched in sweat. That's what she said. The queen didn't know what to do. By then, the neighborhood kings had started mocking at Anandi's father. Your daughter, does she know horse riding? Does she know karate? Forget everything. Can she even bend down and pick something from the floor? Your kingdom will be ours in no time. Do you know that? And this really bothered the king. He called many teachers and called Anandi too. Anandi, karate, kung fu, zumba, boxing. You are learning all of these. No excuse, okay? Okay, Nana. Karate, kung fu, zumba, boxing. Boxing, zumba, kung fu, karate. Karate, kung fu, zumba, boxing. Boxing, zumba, karate, kung fu, zumba, boxing, karate, kung fu, zumba. Nana, I cannot breathe, Nana, no taste, Nana, no smell, Nana, my head is hurting, Nana, I'm running a temperature, Nana, cough also, Nana, I think I'm getting a COVID attack, Nana, I'm getting a COVID attack, Nana, COVID. Everyone flew away from the palace, but for the king and the queen. Anandi burst out laughing. Karate, Kung Fu, Zumba, boxing, everyone's scared of COVID. But she was the only one laughing. She looked at her parents. They were seated in their thrones, looking at Anandi with such disappointed looks on their faces, with tears streaming from their eyes. Anandi didn't expect that. Something inside her hurt. Something squeezed. Something inside her changed. That was the moment Anandi decided to change. Let us not get into the details. Within few months, Anandi became the fittest person in the whole kingdom. Do you know what her favorite song changed to? A ante aerobics, B ante broccoli. A for aerobics, B for broccoli, T for trekking, D for dancing, S for swimming, J for jumping. Healthy life, zing 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 zing. Healthy life, zing 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 zing. Healthy life, zing 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 zing. That is the story of the foodie princess Anandi, written by myself, Ambujavalli. Till we meet again. Dhanyavadamulu. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ambujavalli. That was so exciting. That was so interesting. I now see exactly what it is to be singing and dancing and gesticulating and taking your audience along. I'd be happy to have Rohini and Lakshmi all on video, please. We have very little time, but I think it would be very interesting to have you talk to one another. There are a question or two. One, for example, quite specifically for Rohini, asked by Devi Krishna, kindly conduct workshops for teachers who teach at government schools. I think this is valid for all schools who, would help in teaching children the subject, particularly science, and that would be quite a value addition. What do you say to that, Rohini? How do you feel about that? You must be doing workshops with teachers.
No, there was only once I attempted such a thing, and the teachers had a lot of questions. We were trying to come up with curriculum that suited all of us. We were trying to come up with a plan that suited all of us, because not all of them were comfortable using storytelling. Some of them wanted to write a different kind of a story, and some of them wanted to try it maybe through poems and all. So we were trying to coordinate with each other and come up with a common idea. We tried it once, yes, and it worked, but I don't know how far the teachers are carrying it to the classrooms. So yes, I can help any teacher who wants to do it, and I'm always available. They can get in touch with me. And
that's quite an offer. Yes, very frequently I think it is all about finding passion in a subject, and then the rest follows. I recall my own journey. I used to love my biology teacher, and I decided because of the teacher that I would take up biology. Ultimately, I shifted back to arts, but I did pursue it for a while. But I think that's and Ambujavalli, you might be using this in schools. You must be performing in front of live audiences, children and senior people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my children, mainly children. Yes, I do for adults too, but I don't find much difference between performing for children and for adults. So there is a child in each one of us. So it's all the same is what I feel.
Okay. I'm being told that I have to wrap up. The time is getting over. Last line, last word from anyone. Lakshmi, would you like to say something? I'll just go down the line to each one.
I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Anything, Ambujavalli, Rohini, any last word?
A big thanks for having me here.
And this is the first time I tried a science story in Telugu with motivation from Team HLF. It has been a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, for all the audience to know that Rohini did one session yesterday in English and then this one is in Telugu. And I'm glad you did that because I think this is really called for. And I thank each one of you for being here, for your stories, for your engagement and for what you are doing. I think it's very important to reach out to young and older children. And when I say older children, I'm talking about myself. That we do continue the art of storytelling. There's a lot that can be said, done, understood, and achieved by telling stories to one another. Thank you so much to all of you, and thank you for the audience for being with us. A couple of hours more till the end of the festival. Please stay on and enjoy the festival. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes, please.